All right, what is going on, my friends? Got a little bit of a different video for you today. I thought it might be interesting to do a bit of a check-in on what my current diet is, kind of how my training is going right now, and my current supplements, actual supplements. Figured that would just be a good little check-in. Kind of been thinking a little bit recently. Very rare for me to think about anything other than training. I've always been kind of a one-track minded kind of person, but I've been thinking a little bit recently about kind of the balance that I want to strike on the channel between content that kind of centers around me as a coach, kind of informational stuff, recommendations, tutorials, the standard stuff I do on here, and myself as an athlete, which I take very, very seriously. And to be perfectly frank, I still think of myself as more of an athlete than I do as a coach. I don't wake up in the morning and think I am Sam the coach. That is how I make my living. But to me, I started coaching initially because I think it's interesting. I spent a lot of time thinking about it and I would like to share that with others. But it's also a way for me to take care of myself and fund my own training. First and foremost, because to me, my training is the most important thing in the world to me. It really it's what I love, right? And so I do still think of myself as Sam the athlete. I put a lot of effort into I figure if I'm going to coach as my job, I would like to be damn good at my job, because I think sucking at your job, you're going to have to do it every day for the rest of your life anyway. You may as well be good at it. So I put a lot of work into it, which I hope comes through on the channel. And I always worry about presenting this to my athletes. Like, I care and I want to do my best as a coach, but that is not my biggest motivation in life, is not being a coach yet. Maybe once I'm past my prime, I can kind of really settle into that identity as a coach. But for the time being, more than anything, I do think of myself as Sam the athlete. And I've kind of bounced back and forth on how much of the channel should center around my own endeavors in getting stronger, and how much of it is more my own endeavors in coaching. Sometimes I shy away from sharing my stuff on here because more so than anything, I train for myself. The numbers are meaningful to me. I don't train because the numbers are meaningful to anyone else. It always annoys me because I care so much about my training when people are critical of my training on the internet. So I've almost shied away from sharing it at times. For a long time, I ran a little Instagram training log. I think I'm probably at like 2,000 training sessions posted. Somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 training sessions logged on there. So thousands and thousands. Each one of those is an individual training session. And I didn't miss a workout for years and years and years logging it. And I only had like 200 followers. It's just some people from high school, some people from the gym, and that was it. And gradually people started to follow my training log. And I think it almost dissuaded me from posting, because now I have to keep in mind that I've got all these people that are watching it that I don't even know, and I don't necessarily want them to. It was more just a log of my training so I could look back and see it as a catalog. And so that kind of pushed me off a log of my training there. And I post a little bit less often over there. But me babbling aside, these are kind of some things I've been thinking about, right? But I do really want to achieve everything I can as an athlete. And I do worry that sometimes I don't place enough focus on that in my mind. Like, I will shift into, because I avoid talking about it, because it's only supposed to mean something to me. I'm not trying to impress other people. I almost get distracted from the fact that that is my primary goal. So I figured today I could just kind of check in with you guys with how things are going, what I'm doing on some basic stuff. So first thing I wanted to run over is my current diet. Body weight is currently between 255 and 260 pounds. The plan is to hang out there for a little while, gradually recomp. I know while recomping isn't probably the most time effective means of improving your body composition, and running through dedicated periods of bulking and cutting is probably more efficacious. I think for strength athletes, it's super viable. If you have a body weight that your training goes well at, you're like, okay, when I'm a little lighter, my training doesn't go too well. When I'm a little heavier, my work capacity tends to go down. There's nothing wrong with hanging out there. And while it might not be as quick as dedicated body comp change, I think that if you hang out at a given body weight and your performance metrics just keep coming up, you roll from hypertrophy to strength to peak, hypertrophy to strength to peak, and you're beating your numbers on all of these, and you maintain this good work capacity and workload, you will recomp over time. And in practical application, that's what I've done for the majority of my career as a strength athlete. I'll push up to the upper end of where I'm kind of comfortable, whether that be with how I look or how I feel or how I perform aerobically. I'll push up to the upper end, and then I hang out there until that weight feels relatively good. And I actually do feel pretty good at 255, 260. When I first got up here, I felt like a sack of shit. But now I'm doing cardio every single day. My performance metrics on the cardio are pretty good. I just wanted to see if I could. I ran an 8-minute mile on the treadmill. Granted, it's a treadmill. It's easier. The other day, and while that wasn't really fun on my shins, it was manageable. So I'm in pretty good shape, but I'm gonna hang out here a while longer because there are a couple of strength standards that I feel I should be able to reach at this weight if I have a true mastery of process before I go up. And this is something I could touch on and make as a little bit of a learning experience is weight gain is a powerful tool, but don't let it be a crutch. Some people are so reliant on just like bulking and bulking and bulking because there's deficiencies within their sleep, within their training, within their technique and all these other things, and they can put a big band-aid on it by being in a giant caloric surplus. And I see tons of guys get into powerlifting and they think that they need to bulk to gain weight because they're doing their training poorly. They should, at their level, very much be able to get sustainably stronger at a fixed body weight. There are periods of time where a caloric surplus is a very good idea and should be used, but you don't want to use it as a band-aid. It always goes the same way, and I've worked with a lot of these guys. They hire me because they're like, I'm going to make this big push up in weight, and either beknownst to me or unbeknownst to me, during the first 2 training cycles, they're pushing their weight up and up and up, and things are going great. The reason they hired a coach in the first place because they were going to take it seriously. They're going to push for maximum strength because that's all they care about. And then they get up to 230, 240, 250, 260, depending on the person, the size of the guy. But they get up to this point where they feel like a sack of shit. They feel really bad about how they look. It's inevitably unsustainable. And then they're like, fuck, Sam, I hit these big numbers, but I hate how I look, and I'm going to have to cut down 30 pounds to feel good again or to like how I look again. And we're going to have to slide back at least some of that progress we put on. And it's one of those things where it's, and like I see a lot of guys who are really, really reliant on that. They can't imagine pushing up in strength without pushing up in body weight. And to avoid using that as a crutch, I usually like to think, I'm like, okay, well, there's a certain level of capability I would like to reach at a certain size before I kind of give myself that go-ahead to bolster my progress more. Because it's one of those things where it's like you can press that button down the line. It's kind of like when athletes stress about, oh, I plan on being an untested guy one day. I need to get on earlier. It's wasted time. Look, if you master the process, look at every extremely high-level natural strength athlete who then got on and how quickly they caught up to the untested equivalent, like the elite untested guys. If we look at Luke Richardson, right, he climbed his way up to be a top 3 super heavyweight in the world in powerlifting. Naturally, I 100% believe that because look at what happened when he wasn't, right? And he achieved this level of mastery of process, of his food, of his training, of his technique, of his sleep. He understood all of these things and then just exploded when he switched to strongman and obviously went untested, right? So it's like there isn't this, oh, you're wasting time effect. And the same thing applies to the caloric surplus. If you get this mastery of process and you're able to get 5 pounds stronger every block at your fixed body weight, add in the surplus on top of that, we're looking at 10, 15 pounds every block, even though you're an intermediate or advanced athlete. We need to reach that level of mastery of process. And that's something Dennis has talked about, Freaky D, about how in a lot of ways you can almost view caloric surplus in the same way that people talk about how steroids are implemented, right? Where it's like if we can get our base up without that caloric surplus, things go better when we add it in. And we shouldn't be constantly looking for that bulked strength, just like people on PEDs probably shouldn't be looking to blast year round and improve their blast strength constantly. You have your cruise strength that comes up and then you can spike it up at any time. Same thing with the caloric surplus. You can bring it up from there. So I kind of have some numbers in mind that I think are, I don't have exact numbers in mind, but I have a general level of strength on some of my core motions that I don't feel like I've reached yet. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But as far as what the current diet is, I've dropped back my food to a roughish maintenance level. We are eating, meal 1 is 8.5 ounces of 93.7 ground beef, 100 grams of rice uncooked weight, I don't know what it is. I've got a measuring thing that I've already written down everywhere for how much salt, but a measured amount of salt, either bone broth or chicken stock, depending on if I can afford it or not. 75 grams of broccoli slaw, and then 1 cup of cranberry. That is meal 1. Meal 2 is the same beef, rice, veggies, and then switching the cup of cranberry juice for a banana and some almond butter. Meal 3, again, 8.5 ounces of beef, rice, 75 grams of broccoli slaw, and then a cup of orange juice. Meal 4, again, 8.5, 100, 75, and then 100 grams of blueberries. And then my final meal of the day is 4 eggs, 5 egg whites, 5 slices of sourdough toast and spinach, and then also 2 cups of whole milk. Not a lot to touch on there, primarily sourcing my protein from high nutrient density protein sources, such as ground beef for the B vitamins, for the zinc, for the potassium content over chicken. Eggs, as they contain freaking everything. They've got choline, which has a positive stimulatory effect on the liver. Cool. Egg whites to just bolster up the protein a little bit extra. Whole eggs are awesome though. Just gotta keep the macros reasonable. I gotta keep my fat in mind because I have IBS. And then whole milk. So high nutrient density protein sources, easy digesting primary carb sources in my rice and my sourdough. Sourdough tends to sit very easy in my stomach. Some veggies for both fiber reasons and additional micronutrient reasons. Lots of broccoli slaw because it adds texture to the meal and checks that veggie slot. And then also spinach due to crazy high nutrient density. I just need to make sure I cook it or the high oxalate content tends to mess up my stomach. Got cranberry juice because I use pink salt, which means it's not iodized, so I need cranberry juice for the iodine. Extra calories because it's a liquid calorie and that's quick. Banana, again, just fruit for fructose spaced through the day, positive stimulatory effect on the liver, blah, blah, blah. Potassium prior to training, blah, blah, blah. Almond butter because a little bit of extra fat in my pre-workout meal makes it digest a little slower, gives me a steady stream of energy while I train, and almond butter is a good general fat source. Got a glass of OJ after training. Idea being knock back some fructose, hopefully start kind of refilling those muscle glycogen stores sooner rather than later. 100 grams of blueberries. Again, checking that fructose box, but also checking a lot of antioxidants off. Checking blueberries are very high micronutrient density food. Eggs, protein. Got my I didn't want to eat rice with my eggs because I hate rice and eggs for some reason, so sourdough it is. And then we're looking at 2 cups of whole milk because there's casein protein in there, which is a delayed, so I can have this protein digesting overnight and kind of have this constant release. I believe that the lactose, being a sugar, also digests relatively slowly when compared to other sugars. So you have this constant fuel for your brain because your brain doesn't shut off while you sleep overnight. And if you run out of glucose, the primary preferred fuel source of your brain in the middle of the night, it tends to release a little pulse of adrenaline and wake you up and tell you, hey bro, I'm hungry, go get some food. And especially if you're a bigger guy who's got a lot of like muscle damage from training, your body's burning through food at a pretty high rate. That is a real problem to wake up in the middle of the night because your body's burned through all of the circulating glucose that you had kind of on hand. So eating a banana prior to bed or having something that's a little bit slower digesting, whether that be a slow digesting carb source, increasing your fats prior to bed a little bit, or drinking milk because of the casein. And I think it's the lactose that I'm thinking of, something or other. Quick rundown of the supplements. Certainly you guys, I'll have a little practical takeaway of what I would actually recommend. But in the morning, I have fish oil because I don't really have enough money to eat salmon twice a week. D3 because the sun is not out very often here. Then I have citrus bergamot and cholesterol, which is just kind of managing my blood profile between the HDL and the LDL. I just find those things to be helpful. They're relatively cheap, all good. Then I have beetroot powder. I have them in pill form because beetroot powder doesn't taste very good. And that's just a general blood pressure, keeping an eye on it thing. I'm a relatively heavy guy, trying to keep your circulations good. And then I have curcumin, which is just like a general anti-inflammatory. Some people swear by it. It's the best thing ever. It's improved their quality of life. I decided to try some. Make sure you buy 95% curcuminoid rather than buying turmeric, which only contains a relatively small amount of curcumin, which is the actually active ingredient that would have an anti-inflammatory effect. I'm messing with it. I don't know if I've noticed it enough to keep it in there. Before training, I have creatine, L-citrulline, beta-alanine, and caffeine, and then some more beetroot, and then that's in the powder form. combination of like blood flow, creatine. I don't have to explain creatine to you guys, blah, blah, blah. And before bed, I have more fish oil because I tend to just feel better when I'm having a little bit more than the RDA for fish oil. I tend to skew a little bit higher, and I don't really have a concrete reason for that other than anecdotally I feel better. I have magnesium glycate because that digests well for me, and it's very hard for me to source enough magnesium within my diet and whole foods. And when I supplement magnesium, I sleep a lot better, which is a big issue for me. GABA, which is like a neurotransmitter that helps with sleep. Again, just trying to improve my relatively poor sleep. I'm willing to invest in that, even though I don't have very much money. My sleep is so poor. I take myself as an athlete seriously, even if it means I'm broke. I will spend money on anything that helps me with my sleep. And then glycine, again, also just to help with the sleep. As far as practical applications, what would I recommend for you guys? If you live somewhere like me that's northern, you don't get outside much, D30 would be a recommendation for everybody. Probably fish oil, because I doubt most of you are bougie enough to be eating quality fish twice a week. So you're probably falling shy of that RDA. And then magnesium. Almost nobody gets enough magnesium in their diet unless you're eating a metric shit ton of pumpkin seeds or oyster or almonds, like a ton. Or actually, you wouldn't even have to eat that much oyster, but most people aren't eating those things. They fall shy. It's a relatively cheap supplement to buy. It's just isolated ingredients, like singular vitamins or minerals, or tend to be cheap. These packaged together like Ultra Pump Stim Pre or all these other things where they combine stuff together for you tend to not be cheap. So if you identify something that's like a singular ingredient, it's not that expensive to add that into your routine. So I usually recommend that most people do. Their sleep improves. It's good for training. Yeah, and then where are we at with training, Sam? Going kind of motion by motion. My pressing strength is coming back very quickly. I had a small rotator cuff strain, not a big deal, just a bit of a pain. After I did that 400-pound push press a little bit ago, I expect to be able to beat that comfortably because it wasn't after. I had that going into it. So after I hit that 400-pound push press, I backed off a little bit. I've let it heal up. It's feeling pretty good, 90% back. We're starting to push back into things. And I think now that I'm pushing up with this issue going away, I will be able to beat that 400-pound push press relatively quickly. So my vertical pressing power is coming back pretty quickly. I'm working on dips and feet up bench right now. I probably will hit some decent numbers on those, and I might start easing back into some comp bench to see if I can chase that 565 bench just for fun. Not that it's really relevant to my training goals right now, but I need to do some accessory pressing anyway, so I may as well just kind of chase some numbers there. Like to do a big feet up and a big dip in the meantime. That's coming back relatively quickly. As far as upper back development, I've been trying to redouble my efforts there because that's kind of always a lagging area. My midsection, I'm kind of training core every day right now, so that's feeling very strong. I'm working on my bracing every single session, making a very deliberate effort to focus on that, as well as doing a lot of work dedicated to training muscular endurance qualities in my core. So lots of hollow holds, lots of front planks, lots of side planks, lots of anti-rotation, and that's got my midsection feeling the strongest it's ever felt. Haven't really been wearing my belt on my deadlifts at all, which brings me to the other kind of parts of the check-in. So primary training metrics, we've got overhead, that's coming back quickly. Feeling good. I don't think I'm gonna hit anything huge this block, but next block we'll be looking for maybe even an all-time PR. Horizontal pressing kind of backed off right now, but gonna ease back into it. Next would be deadlifting. I'm feeling strong. I'm hoping maybe I could even pull 835 at the end of this training cycle. Right now I'm doing all of my lifting on a stiff bar without a belt, and I'm feeling strong. I do 1 day of regular pulls from the floor, 1 day of snatch grip pulls. Probably shouldn't be doing the snatch grips because I'm probably proportionally too good at those for those to be a good idea, but I'm having fun with that. I've got a very strong hunch that when I reintroduce the belt, move over to the deadlift bar, something big will go down at the end of this block. Hinging strength, awesome right now. Squatting strength, pretty meh. I really need to do some work here. That's kind of been my realization over the course of this training cycle, was my squatting strength is lagging behind my hinging strength a lot more than it has in the past. So I'll be allocating more volume to building that back up. Working high bar squats for the first time in a long time, trying to do them like kind of Olympic style high bar. I did a 605 triple the other day, not great. But building that up, I would like to do like a 700 Olympic style squat and then kind of adjust from there. But I really have to allocate a little bit more volume towards it because given how I'm built, it's been a lot of work to get myself to be hinge dominant, but I finally made it. Now I need to course correct and add in just a little bit more squatting volume, but overall, lower body's feeling good. Squat's not where I need it to be at, but I've made the necessary adjustments to where squatting and deadlifting probably should be at like rough all-time strength pretty shortly. Overhead stuff is coming along, and then the way I have my training structured right now, I'm working my events on a dedicated event day on the weekend. That's just kind of a slow and steady slog forward because I've got a lot less training history on my strongman specific events, right? So it's like kind of catching up that deficit. It's just a matter of putting in work week after week after week, accumulating more and more time on the implements. So far, we're kind of steadily marching along, doing dedicated grip training every Saturday with Max, because him as a powerlifter, me as a strongman, can't have enough grip strength, never going to be a problem. So we've been kind of competing on some grip work. Both of us are getting much stronger at it very quickly. So grip is pretty good on the event day. Been doing my yokes and my farmer's walks. And like I said, it's just a matter of week after week, checking that box, spending more time walking with weight. And you're going to get better at walking with weight, which I am. Good progress there. And then I really need to figure out how to make some Atlas stones. Because I would say that the only gap I have that I really need to be addressing that I'm not right now, because I've got during my work week pretty standard stuff trapped at home, so I've got my stuff in the garage, but I'm working on my squatting, my deadlifting, my pressing, and my pulling. Pretty basic stuff, basic gym strength. Building up my calves a little bit because my ankles hurt. And then on the weekend, I'm working those events. Moving events are going great. Grip is going great. Kind of the big thing I need to add in there is sandbag work, either sandbag carries or sandbag loads or sandbag to shoulder, and then stone work. I kind of classify those two things kind of similarly. We're working this kind of pulling something into us quantity, working our spinal extensors pretty heavily. So I would kind of put those into the same exercise slot. And at the gym in town, we do not yet have any heavy sandbags or Atlas stones. So I would say that's kind of the one remaining gap that I need to fill within my off-season programming. So that's kind of how things are going. You guys can expect hopefully a big deadlift coming up, maybe a respectable high bar squat, maybe not. And then hopefully we'll be getting back into the impressive pressing numbers kind of soon. Then I'm just going to keep chipping away on my event stuff. None of you guys really like to watch that, and I can respect that. So there's not going to be a lot of logging of that. But let me know what you guys think as far as how we can strike a balance on the channel of me, the athlete, and me, the coach. Thank you, boys, for watching. I appreciate your time.